is good to be here, and thank you to the artists. I've already been inspired in so many different ways, and I haven't even really stopped and taken it in. So this is fantastic. This is utterly fantastic. If you are new with us, I hope you can sit back and relax and enjoy. I'm Dave Overholt, our lead pastor, and there's just so many people here that love Jesus and are just waiting to love you to be able in our community here. One of the best things about us is here we believe. We really believe. And the best thing that's ever happened in my life is my relationship with Jesus. It is. The best thing in the world has happened to me is my relationship with Jesus. His comfort, his leading, his meaning in my life is utterly fantastic. And we have an agenda here at church. Isn't that great? Like we hear so much like advertising. What are they really trying to get? We're pretty clear with our agenda here. We have an agenda that you will meet Jesus personally and enter into a living and loving relationship with him, because that, we believe here, is the best thing in the entire world for every single person. Many professors, many people in our society pretend that they can be neutral, that they have no agenda, that there's nothing that they're trying to push. And can I just say that is just a lie? Everyone has an agenda. We're just pretty upfront with ours. We want you to meet Jesus. If you study a bit of philosophy, this is one of the best things that postmodern philosophy has given us, is that there is, as one philosopher said, there is no view from nowhere. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone brings in something to a conversation, and we're love to tell you that it's about Jesus, Here in our society, in our country, in sort of the West, we're always sort of being pressed by people that say they're neutral, but they're trying to get us to unhinge ourselves from our faith. They're trying to have this, the purpose of saying that our faith is antiquated. It's a mythology. Why need God? You don't really need God. And if you kind of believe in God, you can sort of put God in the back, sort of in the corner, and just go on with life. And, I kind of believe there is a God, but he doesn't really affect my life. He doesn't really do much because of our society just seems to get along fine without God, without God of any kind. But then you step back and you go, are we really getting along fine? Are we really getting along fine without God? And I've heard so many people say to me, I'm a good person. I don't need religion. I'm a good person. I don't religion. Or the whole science question. I believe in science. And science has taken God off the table. And so they're saying, listen, I really don't need God. Every so often somebody amps up and says, well, prove to me there is a God. Prove to me there is a God. And that's a fascinating thing. Let's think for a minute. What would prove to you that there is a God? What would prove it? Think about it. That would be a great question to ask somebody. What would prove beyond a shadow of doubt there is a God? Would it be like a perfect place he's made? I don't know. What would prove it? Would it be that if he came to earth and did all kinds of miracles like raising people from the dead, would that prove that there is a God? You start to go, well, hold on. That happened. Check. He's made a perfect world. He came to earth. He did a lot of miracles. Check. So what would actually be the proof? And it's so easy to disbelieve. It's easy to say, well, yeah, that doesn't count, or that doesn't count. So actually nothing counts. So there's no way to prove that there is a God. But there's no way to prove there is no God. In fact, we all have to live by faith. We all have to live by some kind of faith. But the thing is, the results, or sort of the whole thing that you have to pay for this is just amped up. The stakes are high on either side. I was hanging out with an Arizona businessman. I was at this place that I was speaking, and he came and sat beside me. What are you doing here? I'm speaking to some young people about God, and He said, he's very verbose, and so he just talked a lot. He said, so, oh yeah, that's great that you believe in God, and that's wonderful, that's good for you. I don't believe in God, but you know what? You're going to live a good life, you're going to help a lot of people, and that's good for you, and it's going to feel good. And he just kept on going. I was trying to get something in there. I just could not get anything in there. So there's one point where he took a breath, which is, you've been around those people, right? They take a breath, and you go, oh, okay, so I jumped in. So I said, so what you're saying is that even though there's no God, if I believe in God, that's good for me because I'm going to live a moral life. I'm going to have purpose, and there's good things that's going to come from my life because I believe in God. He said, exactly. Even though there's no God, even though you believe there's a God, it's a good thing for you. And so I thought, I had 1 minute. I had 1 minute to say anything, right? To be able to get anything. So I said, okay, so that's good. So if you're right, I'm good. But if I'm right, you're in trouble. He didn't say anything. It was like amazing. If there is a God and you live your life without any kind of relationship, you're kind of in trouble, aren't you? And he left. But it was really cool because his wife stayed behind and said, thanks for saying that because I'm a Christian and I pray for him all the time. The stakes are high. This isn't something you can sort of put in the back shelf and kind of say, oh, I'll figure it out one day. The stakes are really, really high. So this is why we have our series, Convince Me. The reason why is when we doubt, what kind of things can be brought back to our minds? When we are questions ourselves, how can we actually address other people? And then if you're on your way to God, if you're not there yet, if you are not religious, if you're not even sure there's a God, if you're watching online and just saying, I don't know, that seems to be a lot to believe. Hold on. We want to help you believe because that's our agenda. We want you to know that there is a living God that wants a living relationship with you. Well, some people have said, I can be a good person without God. And we tackled that week number 1. We just asked back about, how do you know you're good? Well, I just sort of feel that I'm good. Well, how do you know your feelings are right? They might be wrong. Well, what are you getting at? Well, if there is no God, I guess there's really no right and wrong. So what does it really mean to be good? Where does that feeling come from even? Those are just good things to talk about. Or how about the question is, science has taken God off the table. And all of us are going, I don't know science, so I can't say anything. And, they are so, they probably read all kinds of things. And my response usually is, well, science can tell us only what we see. And I see a world that's pretty perfect. It's pretty amazing. It almost seems like there's a designer for it. And I think that's where the evidence points. If I saw a cell phone on the beach, I would think that is a miracle of things coming together by chance or somebody designed it. I'm going to go with somebody designed it. And this world and life is so much more complex. Actually, science does not take God off the table. So the more we study science, the more we go, God is utterly amazing. Some people say, but why is the universe so big? Why is the universe so big? You know why? You know why it's so big? Because God is that big. God is massively huge, massively complex in his thoughts. That is how big the God that we worship is. The beautiful thing. The question that we're going to tackle today is this, and this one I've heard several times. Religions. There are so many religions in the world. How do you know yours is right? How do you know yours is right? How do you know yours is right? And often this is a pushback to Christians as if we're the only people that think what we believe is right. Can I tell you? Other people think they're right too. Just putting that out there. They think they're right too. But the assumption often is this. We're all kind of the same. We all sort of believe in some higher power. You all need to, be good. Aren't all religions the same? All the same thing. So I'm going to kind of believe in God. Maybe there's a God. I'll give you that, Dave. And I'll be good to other people. I'm good. Believe in God. I'm good. That's all we really need. Thing is, all the other religions would say, hold on. No, we are not the same whatsoever. Buddhists believe there is no God. Isn't that wild? It's an atheistic religion. Hindus and many of the spiritualities, people from nations, believe in multiple gods. In fact, the Quran reads, I was reading a book written by a Muslim man who became a Christian. The Quran specifically says that Jesus did not rise from the dead. So Jesus did not rise from the dead, or he did. You can't be the same. We are not the same. We're all completely different. All completely different. So if we're all completely different, how do you figure out which one, where's the right way? Like, how do you figure that out? There's got to be some clarity around this, right? Well, I believe Jesus' message and his life are completely unique and provide that clarity for us completely. All religions say you just got to be good. As long as we give to the poor, help people across the street, as long as we do those kind of things, we're good with God. Everyone says that except Jesus. He does not say that. In Matthew 5:20, it says this, for I tell you, and this is Jesus speaking, that unless your righteousness or your goodness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. At that time, could you imagine this? You see the most religious people, the people that seem to follow all the rules. You know how they are. They just seem like to be so good. And then Jesus comes and you're given hope because he hangs out with you and you know he's loving, and you go, okay, bring it on, Jesus. Tell me I'm good, even though I'm not, I fall. There's this gap in me. And he says, okay, here we go. I'm going to give you some real hope. Unless you're better than the best of the best, you're not going to heaven. Yay. Thank you, Jesus. Wow. Is there anybody else I can talk to? All religions recognize there's this gap between what we are and what we should be. Between what we are and between what we should be. There's this gap. And all religions hope that by doing good, will close the gap. They all believe in some kind of eternal scale in heaven, as if there's a good side and a bad side. Oh man, I lied, but you know what? If I help some other people, it's going to even out. All religions have some kind of scale. They're trying to manage the gap. Some are mystical, as if you need to travel to a special place on the globe, and that will help close the gap. Some are good about giving to the poor or washing. A lot of washing will help you. Some are slightly bizarre. Saying the name of God, I talked to one holy man from this religion. He said, if you say the name of God 1,720 times every day in your life, you wash up to your elbows, and then that will close the gap. That will help with the goodness. I've been to places where people would come and leave fruit at different places where some person chiseled out a hunk of stone into a shape of something, and people would leave pieces of fruit there, hopefully to close the gap. But Jesus is completely different amongst all other things. You can never close the gap. It's as if one sin makes you guilty of all. And this is what the Bible actually says, James 2:10. For whoever keeps the whole law yet stumbles at just one point is guilty of breaking them all. It's as if you go, okay, I stole something. I'm caught. You talk to the judge. I stole something. That's great. You can't send me to jail because I also gave a lot of good money to other people, right? Just because I stole something, you've caught me and I'm guilty. If I do other good things, it's going to take that thing away, right? Of course not. Justice says you have to pay for everything that you've done wrong. And so in the same way, God says, listen, if you keep the whole law, if you are completely perfect and yet stumble at one point. I love it. It doesn't even say you're rebellious at one point. You just kind of stumble. You make a mistake at one point. You're guilty. The point is you're guilty of breaking all of it. Heaven cannot be from what we do. Heaven cannot be given to us by trying to work off things that we've done wrong. Heaven can only be given as a gift, as a grace in trusting Jesus that he paid for everything I've done wrong. That everything I've done wrong still needs to be paid for. It still is an outstanding debt. But the beautiful thing is Jesus came to pay that debt. It's not just that God is his heavenly grandfather. I love you all come on in. No, he is also very just, and everything needs to be paid for, and Jesus did that. Grace is freely given because only Jesus can close the gap. Only Jesus can close the gap. As Ephesians 2:8-9 says this, God saved you by his grace. That's his gift. When you believed, not by when you did things, and you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we've done, so none of us can boast about it. In other words, you can't go to heaven saying, hey, I made it. Woohoo, we made it. All right, do you know so-and-so? Yeah, he's not here. He didn't deserve it. Boom, we're here. We made it. He didn't. There's none of that. Every person that steps into heaven, it's just an absolute gift from a holy God because they trusted Jesus. That's it. And heaven is going to be filled with worshipful people because we all know that we don't deserve to be there. We all know that God is good in what he's given us. And that message, Jesus' message, is completely unique. You can pile up all other religions here, and Jesus' message is completely and utterly different from every other message. Not only is message completely different, his Jesus' life is completely unique. Line up every religious leader, and they've all heard from God in some way. Somebody went to a cave and had a mystical experience. Somebody was spoken to by an angel. Somebody just meditated and stepped into enlightenment. Everyone sort of got things from outside. Everyone except Jesus. Everyone. Jesus stands completely different from everyone. Do you know what Jesus said? He said, I haven't heard from God. I haven't received. He said, I am God. Jesus accepts worship in John 20. He forgives sins in Mark 2 and John 1. On John chapter 14, one of the disciples says, hey, can you just show us the Father? Can God just peel back the heaven and, God go, hey, and then, we're good, right? Can you just do that? And then Jesus says this, he says, you've been with me so long. You mean you haven't seen God in me? That I and my Father are one. If you've seen me, you've seen God. All his followers, including his brothers, recognized he is God. So Jesus' message is completely different. Jesus himself is completely different. And as our drama said, that's easy to say. Easy to say, saying, okay, great, Jesus, you're God, whatever. And that's exactly what the Jews said. That's exactly what the Jews said at the time of Jesus. Who are you? In John chapter 2, verse 18-19, just before this, Jesus was in the temple, and he goes in the temple to worship his Father, and he sees tables and cattle and doves and people ripping people off with money. So he very systematically goes over and makes a whip, all right? This is not just out of anger. He's very systematically, and he comes in, gentle Jesus, rah, and he flips over the table and whips, all the animals out, and some of the people are going, ooh, ooh, and they're all running away. And as he's doing this, just creating this cacophony of just throwing people out of the temple, all of a sudden, the religious leaders run and find out who's causing all this, and it's Jesus again. John chapter 2, 18-19, it says, the Jews then responded to him, what sign can you show us to prove, there's the word, to prove your authority to do all this? Prove that you are from God. Prove it. And Jesus said, well, I don't really have any proof. You just got to believe. No, he did not say that. Isn't that interesting? This is what he said. Jesus answered this, destroy this temple, and I will raise it up again in 3 days. That was his proof. That was his proof that I am God. I am God, and I'm going to prove it because you're going to kill me, and 3 days later, I will rise again. Well, a lot of people say that's great. It's a neat story, little myth written in the Bible, but it's hard to believe that really happened. Beautiful thing is You don't have to read the Bible to believe that's happened. Say, what? Yes, there are other writers during that time that wrote about Jesus. Jesus was a real person. And there's three things that the writers said during that time who are outside the Bible. Number one, they said Jesus was this person, that he did miracles. Number two, that he was killed by Pontius Pilate. And number three, no one could find his body anywhere afterwards. And so that's why they made this new religion. 1, 2, 3. That is outside the Bible. This is just history. This is a historic fact. I don't have time to read them all to you. But here are some of them. Now there's about this time, this is from Josephus, this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works. There he is. There was a man called Jesus. This is Josephus. He's a Jewish person, not a Christian. A teacher of such men who received truth with pleasure. Basically, he's saying Jesus came along during this time and he did wonderful works. So there really was a person named Jesus. There's another person called Lucius at the time, wrote a play, and Jesus was somebody who did wonderful works. Actually, Lucius was against Christians, and he made fun and mocked Jesus, but it just showed that he was a real person. Tacitus wrote, Christ, the follower of the name, was put to death by Pontius Pilate. He was put to death. So we know Jesus was a real person. He was put to death. That was written in 100 AD, just during the lifetime of these people. Then there's these interesting other things that come along that there's these people are arguing about when Jesus died and there was an eclipse and the planet went dark. And this is what happened. This is a quote written in 52 AD. This is written 20 years after Jesus was on the cross. 20 years. So this is not a myth that took hundreds of years. This happened, and we have these writings. Thales. So this is this bit of a thing from a person called Julius Africanus. Thales, in his third book of his histories, explains away this darkness as an eclipse of the sun. In other words, saying when Jesus was on the cross and there's the planet went dark, it must have been an eclipse. And this guy, it couldn't have been an eclipse. Unreasonably, as it seems to me, of course, because a solar eclipse could not have taken place at the time of a full moon. And it was at the season of Paschal, the full moon, that Christ died. Just to let you know, other people are writing about Jesus, about him dying, about the miraculous events around it, other than the Bible. You can look outside the Bible and know that Jesus was killed. 3 days later, no one could find his body. So, there was this idea. What is the next? What really happened? And there's lots of different things. Like some people say he didn't really die. Some people say he really didn't die. Could you imagine that for a moment? So that he was crucified. This is something that you probably don't walk away from so easily. To be whipped and flogged and lose at least a third of your blood. To be hung by the arms until you can't breathe. And then they wrap you in hundreds of pounds of gummy material. Throw you into a tomb. As one person said, well, the tomb revived him. Could you imagine that? That's why it took 3 days. You know, he's going, oh, that really hurt. Oh, and then he's got, jump around and cut the cloth off. That's how he had to do it. And then he comes up to a stone, right? So he has to, how am I going to move a half-ton stone? So he probably dug his way out, even though he has holes in his hands. And somehow he walked into town all bloody and ripped up with holes in his feet to stand before his disciples only 3 days later saying, I've risen from the dead. Anybody got a glass of water? Anyway, that could have happened. Could have happened. The things that people talk about most as happening is that Jesus stole the body. Jesus' disciples stole the body. They're the only ones that had anything to gain by this. They're the only ones that, are going to make a new religion, and that's going to be fantastic. And the thing is, every one of these disciples, everyone except for one, John, who was tortured. Every one of these disciples were tortured or put to death in the midst of saying, listen, you can say that Jesus did not rise from the dead. Tell us you stole the body. Tell us this is fake, or we will kill you. And you know what they said to a person? Kill me. I saw him alive. And I stepped back from that going, something's happening here. This is not mass hysteria. This is not mythology that's happened over hundreds of years. These people went to their death saying that Jesus was alive. All the time, the Romans would love them people to find the body of Jesus. They were embarrassed. They were the ones guarding the tomb. Anyone who was a Jewish leader would love to have found the body. But they were embarrassed because not only that, but 3,000 people within 40 days have come to Christ and moved from being Jewish in the Jewish faith really to believe that Jesus was the Messiah. It spread so fast that within a mere 30 years, there were 50,000 Christians in Rome, so far away that the whole persecution from Nero started. How did a message go that fast? It did not go on the message of loving each other. That message was not the message that carried it. There was one message, and this was it. Jesus died and rose again for the forgiveness of sins. Come to him, and he will change your life. And they did, and their lives were changed, and they met Jesus personally. And then they were so enlivened by this, they told others and others and others until there are tens of thousands of Christians within a very short time. This is no myth. This is no thing that happened over hundreds of years. And I remember reading this guy, Chuck Colson. I know a lot of people don't know because how young you are here, but because I remember, talking about Watergate, and I remember, some university students, what's that about? I have no idea. So it was basically a politically corrupt situation where people were spying on the other side, and they were caught, and basically they were going to be brought to court, and they were each going to be asked, "Did you lie? Did you lie?" And there's 12 of them. Did you lie? And if you were caught lying, you were going to go to prison. You're going to go to prison. So that was the punishment if you weren't the one, to sort of fess up. One of these people was a guy called Chuck Colson. He was in this politically corrupt thing, and this is what he wrote. After having gone through that Watergate experience, he became a Christian. And this is what he wrote. I'm jumping ahead to this quote, by the way. "I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me. How? Because 12 men testified they'd seen Jesus raised from the dead. Then they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Everyone was beaten, tortured, stoned, and put in prison. They would not have endured it if it wasn't true. Watergate, the thing that he was involved in, embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world. And they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. They folded. They said, don't put me in a prison. Okay, it was that person. Don't put me in a prison. It was that person. They were finger pointing like crazy so they didn't have to go to prison. Instead, the apostles faced death saying, I saw him alive. I know we can't say anything is absolute proof, but that comes pretty close to me. That comes really close to me. That there was a man named Jesus outside the Bible. He was put to death by Pontius Pilate. And then no one could find his body, and his closest disciples went to their death saying, I saw him alive. And so to answer the question, well, what religion is true? I mean, there's so many religions. It's just too much. You can't really figure it out. You got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. And if you're trying to figure it out, there's one that brings complete clarity. Here's the clarity. Everyone else says, be good. Jesus says, you can't be good. Come to me and believe. Everybody else says, I think I've heard from God. Jesus says, I am God. And everyone else died. And Jesus died and rose again. I think that's clear to me. I know, I'm prejudiced, right? I've got an agenda here, and the agenda is meet him. He's awesome. He's alive. He's alive. And if you're a Christian and if you're not walking in that living relationship, experience it. Feel the joy of it in your soul because Jesus died and rose again for the forgiveness of your sins so you can walk with him and know him, and he will tap you and lead you. He will whisper his comfort to you, and he will give you meaning in life. And he's awesome. And if you're on your way to God, if you're not there yet, there is clarity. There is perfect clarity, I think, around this. That Jesus died and rose again. Jesus' life and message are completely unique. I'm going to ask our worship team to come on up. Jesus' life and message are completely unique. It's as close to the word proof as I can get. So Christians, when you doubt, and you will doubt, can you just go back and say, hold on. No, Jesus, you died and rose again. This is a real thing. This is a real thing. When people question you and say, well, why are you so religious? I've met Jesus. How do you know he's the right way? Oh, he died and rose again. He died and rose again. You know, at the end of the day, when all those doubts and questions come at you, I hope you can come back to saying, God is the best explanation. God is the best explanation for everything. If you'd like to share some of that message with others, I'm going to have a box of books over there called Reasons to Believe produced by our church here. And you're welcome to take one if you can give that to someone else. If somebody on the way needs something to think about, you can take one of those and give that away. It costs us about $5 to produce. If you'd like to leave a donation, you're welcome to do that. But if you're going to use it, just use it. They're going to be over there and use that. So as we worship now, as you look at the art and let that come and bring you to Jesus, as you hear the music come, can you worship him? That Jesus is clear. He died and rose again for the forgiveness of your sins. And come to him if you're not there yet. Amen.